Is KeBryan Hayes finally going to win an award that he should have won already?
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith, your host of this wonderful show, brought to you by Jase Medical on this fine Tuesday, September 19th. Hope you guys all had a wonderful Monday, enjoyed Monday's show. And on today's episode, we're going to get into KeBryan Hayes and the possibility that he finally wins an award that he, in retrospect, should have already won, to me, multiple times in his young career, and that is the Gold Glove Award. Now, KeBryan Hayes, his 2023 campaign has been interesting. It started slow. It's had injuries involved. It's had a lot of things involved. But one thing that never left, that we knew would never leave once the Pirates signed KeBryan Hayes to that long extension in 2022, was the defense. His defense has been stellar in past years. It's been stellar this season, but his offensive output has really improved over the last 2 months, as many of you know. He returned from the IL with some low back inflammation, and he's brought his average up to a 270 on the season, folks, which is a very, very good number, if you ask me, especially for a guy that's going to give you the defensive output that he gives every single year. But in his last 30 days, KeBryan Hayes has been playing at an all-star level over the past month and change. Over the past 30 games that he's played, he's slashing 311, 361, 525, and 886 in the OPS category, 5 home runs, and 16 RBIs. Now, we all know the hitting has always been a question mark for KeBryan Hayes, and it's been the biggest question mark in his game. Was his offensive output ever going to get in the same ballpark as his defensive output? And this season, especially down the end of the year, you've seen it. And since his debut in 2020, he, of course, lit up the scene in 2020 whenever he debuted hitting the baseball in the COVID year. But his defense has always been there. And this year may finally be the year that KeBryan Hayes gets recognition for how good he is at the hot corner with a Gold Glove Award. And I would say at third base, among not only the National League, but all of baseball, he probably has the most convincing case of anybody to do it. And you're going to hear a lot of stats. You guys know I love statistics on the show, but they still, even the stats don't say everything about KeBryan Hayes and the defense that he brings at the hot corner. The guy saves runs, i.e. defensive runs saved, when he's playing over there. He gobbles up everything at that position, to the point where sometimes I think hitters are trying not to hit a ball on the ground or even a line drive that way, because they know Hayes is either going to stop it and get them out or just make a crazy play look routine, as he's done over the past 3 years. But you look right now at where Hayes is. He's third in baseball in defensive runs saved behind Dalton Varsho and Fernando Tatis Jr. Of course, Hayes has 22. Tatis Jr. has 24, and Dalton Varsho, who's had a phenomenal defensive season, has 26. But that also means that in all of baseball, KeBryan Hayes is first in defensive runs saved among all third basemen across the league. Ryan McMahon, by the way, is the closest player or third baseman to KeBryan Hayes in defensive runs saved. He has 16 defensive runs saved, so 6 less than KeBryan Hayes does. And Ryan McMahon has played 80 more innings this season than KeBryan Hayes has. Hayes would probably be leading baseball in defensive runs saved at this current moment if it was not for his IL stint earlier this year. On top of all this, Hayes is also first in the PART category, which is positioning, balls hit in the air, range, and throwing. That's PART. He is first in that category, tied with Dalton Varsho. He also ranks highly in defensive percentiles. He's a 95th percentile in fielding run value, 99th percentile in range with outs above average. And speaking of outs above average, he ranks fourth in outs above average and first among third basemen. So what you're hearing when I'm saying all this, the Gold Glove is given out to both leagues. You obviously have a Gold Glove winner in the American League at third base, and you're going to have a Gold Glove winner in the National League at third base. Hayes leads all of baseball in defensive runs saved, outs above average, and fielding run value among third basemen. What other case does he have? I mean, what else does he need to do to win the Gold Glove Award? Apparently in past years, and I'll say this because I've always said it about the Gold Glove Award, and it's the stupidest thing ever. Batting average and a competitive team play a huge role in winning a Gold Glove Award. Why a batting average or your offensive output for a defensive award means anything, or your team being good means anything for this award makes absolutely no sense to me. He was better than Nolan Arenado last year defensively. Just go back and look at the stats. He had more defensive runs saved. He had more outs above average. He was just a better defensive third baseman than Nolan Arenado. But Nolan Arenado had a better offensive season than KeBryan Hayes, and I'm sure he probably is this year. But now Hayes has gotten to that point where he's in the 270s. He's hitting well. The Pirates are a relatively competitive team down the stretch of the season. And it's stupid that it matters, but Hayes has the average now to win an award that's given for defense. And he has, as you heard me say, every single stat backing him up. Every stat that should matter for a Gold Glove Award, especially at third base, Hayes is either first or in the top 5 in every single defensive metric at that position across all of baseball. So, Rawlings, Major League Baseball, and people who vote for the Gold Glove Award, give the freaking award to KeBryan Hayes because he deserves it. He's done everything that he could possibly do within the confines of PNC Park and other places to be the best defensive third baseman in all of baseball. Just give him the award. And guess what? There's still 12 games left. I guarantee you he'll have more defensive runs saved by the time the season ends. And he'll still be top 5 in the category across all of baseball outside of the third base position. Just give him the award. An award, of course, is given after the year. Pirates aren't making the postseason unless a miracle happens, but who cares? Recognize that KeBryan Hayes is the best third baseman defensively in the game of Major League Baseball. Just give him his award because he deserves it. That's my take. It's my take on it. KeBryan Hayes should be the Gold Glove winner in the National League at third base this season. No ifs, no ands, no buts. I want to hear no excuses from voters, Cardinals fans, whoever you want to hear it from. I want to hear nothing about why KeBryan Hayes shouldn't win the Gold Glove Award at third base this year, because he has, again, been the best defensive third baseman in baseball this year. That was my sales pitch, by the way, for KeBryan Hayes to win the NL third baseman Gold Glove Award. But, in deep sales, LinkedIn sales can help you find out things to close deals, because are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes, like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales, and we've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you could try the LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial of the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. The Pittsburgh Pirates have had a wonderful, fun ride this 2023 season, and I've been along for the ride, as many of you have been. Thank you so much for tuning into this show, as you always do here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and thank you for putting up with me and my schedule, because you guys are the best listeners and fans that a podcast host could ask for. And the Pirates, of course, coming down the stretch of the 2023 season, my third season with the Locked On Pirates podcast, they're making their final road trip of this year. 9 games in Chicago, Cincinnati, and Philadelphia. And this is the final road trip of 2023. And, of course, the season will cap off against the Miami Marlins at the end of October, or the beginning of October. And it starts at Wrigley Field tonight, their final road trip of the 2023 campaign. And I don't have to tell you this, but we all know the Pirates have struggled with the Chicago Cubs team all season. They've played very well against the Cardinals. They've played good baseball against the Reds. They've even played pretty good baseball against the Milwaukee Brewers, despite having a losing record against the Brewers. But they enter the season, or this series, 1-9 versus Chicago. Their only win, of course, coming from that Mitch Keller gem that he pitched against the Cubs last month. And this team has given the Pirates fits all year. And we remember the slide that began when the Pirates were still an NL Central contender, losing 9 straight games, 6 of those being to the Chicago Cubs and 3 of those being to the Milwaukee Brewers, and the rest has been history. Now, obviously, this is a much better rendition of the Pirates than what we were seeing in May, whenever they started 20-8 in April and just fell apart in the month of May. And although the struggles have been there for the Pittsburgh Pirates against Chicago, newsflash, folks, the Cubs have not been playing that great of baseball as of late at all. Entering tonight's game, Pittsburgh has a better record, batting average, and run differential than Chicago in their last 10 games. With the Cubs, of course, entering the series on a 5-game losing streak, they lost and were swept in a series against the team that they are fighting against right now in the postseason, in the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they've lost 8 of their last 10 games. So this is not what the Cubs need to be doing right now, being in this crazy wild card race. Because, as many of you know, the wild card race for the NL is nuts. The Cubs currently hold the final spot right now over Cincinnati via tiebreakers and have a half-game lead over Miami. The San Francisco Giants are 2 games back, and I believe the Diamondbacks have about a 1-game edge on the Chicago Cubs after sweeping that series in Arizona. So, for the Pirates to come into this series, if you want to beat the Cubs and actually play a good series against them, now would be the time to do it. The Cubs are trying to make the postseason, but they're not playing good baseball. They just haven't looked like themselves the last 10 games from the Cubs that we've seen the Pirates play and the Cubs that baseball has seen all year. And if the Pirates were to win tonight against Javier Assad and the Chicago Cubs, excuse me, they would extend Chicago's losing streak to 6 games, which would be a season high. So, Pirates can play spoiler here, folks. At Wrigley Field, it's going to be a hostile environment because it's going to realistically feel like a playoff environment. Because the Cubs are basically in the playoffs right now. The Cubs, Marlins, Diamondbacks, Reds, and Giants are all playing playoff baseball right now. They cannot afford to lose games anymore. Pirates, of course, not mathematically eliminated from contention, and a series sweep here would make things interesting. But too much has to happen for the Pittsburgh Pirates to even think about that. And again, the Cubs will have Javier Assad on the mound tonight. He's looked pretty good this year. Justin Steele is going to be an NL Cy Young candidate. He'll pitch on Wednesday. And Kyle Hendricks will be taking the mound on Thursday in the series finale. And the Pirates have not announced pitching as of yet at the time of recording. We've seen that be a common theme as of late. I would expect Mitch Keller to go on Wednesday. The last time he pitched was Friday. So that would be about 5 days rest, of course, with the off day on Monday. Maybe he pitches tonight. I feel like it'll probably be Wednesday, though, because they know Justin Steele is going to pitch very well in that game. And excuse me again. Sorry, guys. But Pittsburgh has a chance to play spoiler here. And the biggest chance for them to do that is, can they hit with the Cubs? Can they score runs with the Cubs? And can the pitching stand on its head and not look like it has in the last 10 matchups we've seen? Because the Cubs right now own a 74-27 run advantage against Pittsburgh. They have not played well against this team at all this year, folks. It's been very bad. But as I mentioned before, this series could have a playoff atmosphere and a playoff feel to it. Pirates are not a bad team. They're 70-80. They're a competitive team. They went toe-to-toe with the Braves. They went toe-to-toe with the Dodgers this year. They went toe-to-toe with the Padres. They've went toe-to-toe with the Reds. They've played good baseball against good teams. The Cubs have just been one of those teams that have gotten after them a lot. But I do feel like this series is going to be good for the young guys too, because Chicago's fighting for the postseason, and you're going to get a taste of competitive baseball in this one. And I feel like that's going to be very, very important for this Pirates team moving forward. And it's going to be something they're going to face in the final 12 games anyway. It starts with the Cubs here. It's the Reds this weekend at Great American Ballpark, which could possibly be Joey Votto's last home series for the Cincinnati Reds at Great American Ballpark, depending on if he comes back or not. And I think the Pirates are going to try to continue to finish this campaign strong and start it tonight against the Chicago Cubs team that, again, is fighting for a playoff spot right now. And this is why the third wild card, by the way, is such an awesome addition to baseball, because it's just great. I love it. I think everything about that extra spot is awesome. And I think it gives a lot of teams hope to make the playoffs. And like we saw last year with the Philadelphia Phillies, all it takes is to get in, folks. But the Pirates could be a benefactor into making sure the Cubs don't. Today's episode is also brought to you by Jase Medical.com. You can use your promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off at Jase Medical. Because, you know, the Jase Case is here for you because it provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jase Case is to fill out a simple online form and in some cases jump on a quick call with one of our on-board certified physicians. Get ongoing care from our physicians on any treatment-related questions, doctor-created and doctor-recommended. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication on hand, and it's simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Flip the promo code LOCKEDON. Thank you, Jase Medical, for sponsoring this show, and make sure you're empowered in an emergency to take care of yourself. And welcome to the final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates, everybody. As always, thank you for tuning in, as you always do here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And for many of you, on Sunday, you watched the Pirates pick up a victory against the New York Yankees to salvage a win in the home series against the Yankees on Roberto Clemente weekend. But the win did give the Pirates their highest win total since 2018. And the improvements we've seen from this team should not be understated. It's been a wild 2023 season with the injury to O'Neal Cruz, the drafting of Paul Skeens, the 20-8 start, the collapse from 20-8, the debuts that we've all seen this season. It has been a crazy year. And that 2018 season was an 82-79 season. Obviously, they did not play the full 162 games that year due to a weather delay in a game that didn't matter. And it's a welcome achievement for the Pirates to get to this point of 70 wins and their best record since 2018, because we're in year 4 of rebuilding from the Jamison Taillon, Josh Bell, whatever, Joe Musgrove era of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And with 12 games remaining, folks, the Pirates could reach 76 wins just by playing 500 baseball. They really could. 6-6 would get them to 76 wins, which usually 76 wins is nothing to really be happy about. But when you consider that this team lost 100 games the last 2 years and won 62 games last year, if they get to 76 victories, folks, that is a 14-win improvement from last year if they win that many games. Now, double-digit win improvements are usually always noteworthy in baseball, because they usually happen to teams like the Pirates or like the Baltimore Orioles or the Cleveland Guardians or the Chicago Cubs when they were in their World Series run. And the Pirates have not had a double-digit win improvement since 2012 and 2013, which, of course, we remember 2013 very, very much so, because it was the year that the Pirates got back to the postseason for the first time since 1992. It was the first season that they had a winning record since 1992. And they jumped from 79 to 94 wins that season, a 15-win improvement. Starting to notice a little bit of a trend here, aren't you? Because if the Pirates can get to 77 wins, it's a 15-win improvement. And it makes that leap, as me and Gary talked about yesterday, to get into contention a little bit easier. It's a little less daunting next season to get into the 80s and maybe even 90 wins next season after winning 75 to 78 games. We've seen it happen before. We've seen it happen in Pittsburgh in the last decade. It has happened before. And that's why the win total should not be understated. The record should not be understated. The Pirates have played very good baseball as of late, too. They played really good baseball in the first 2 months, and they played really good baseball the last 2 months. Arguably the 2 most important parts of the year. But they fell apart in the middle part, which is fine. And the setbacks that this team has dealt with this year have just been countless. JT Brubaker and Mike Burrows go down. Max Kranick was unavailable. O'Neal Cruz goes down. You have Brian Reynolds and KeBryan Hayes deal with minor injuries throughout the year. You trade Rich Hill and G-Man Choi and create a void at first base again. You've been working with pretty much a two-man rotation for the last month and a half. Yet this team is still at 70-plus wins and counting. And this is the 13th time the Pirates have had 70-plus wins since 1999. It's ugly stat. Hate it. But again, it shouldn't be understated that this Pirates team is not a good baseball team. They're not a playoff baseball team, but they're a competitive baseball team. And most importantly, they're the youngest baseball team in all of baseball right now. And they're only going to continue to get better. And the fact that they've still gotten to this point is a measurement of their improvement in coaching, in progression of the young players, in every facet. What they've done down the stretch of the year has been a success, top to bottom, from everybody in the organization. And most of these players are going to be back next year, folks. Remember that part too. All these guys you're watching improve and continue to get better right now are all going to be back next year. And the Pirates have a chance to be a competitive baseball team in 2024 with the right moves, with the right decisions. And I think they'll do just fine. Thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Pirates podcast here on Tuesday, September 19th. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. Make sure you also follow this podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy the game tonight. My name is Ethan Smith, and I will see you on the flip side.